building a boom-mounted lab LCD screen using a recycled monitor from a laptop today in Mikey's lab. Welcome back to the lab. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below to make sure that you stay up to date with all the content that we produce in the lab. For those that are wondering, yes, the next video in the satellite module series is coming soon. I've heard you. I know you want it. The software was much more complicated than it should have been, but it's coming. Well, this video will have the next Making an ADHD video, and then the video after should be the second in that series. All right. So whenever I'm working with a microcontroller or a project that has an HDMI output, I usually have some LCD screen laying somewhere on my bench, and it's in my way a lot. Today, we're going to work on solving that issue. So the first thing I'm going to openly admit is I found inspiration from this on a project on Thingiverse for a bare metal kind of industrial looking frame for an LCD. There was some things about it I didn't like. So obviously I don't recreate other people's work. I always modify it to make it my own. The biggest one here being its connection to a mic boom that I am hoping is strong enough to hold this monitor, but we'll find out. So what we have here, these are the 4 pieces that were from the original design on Thingiverse, which I will link to in the description down below. Some threaded rods that have been cut down to size. Plates that were part of the original Thingiverse to hold the circuitry and electronics, because you guys did make fun of me for cardboard and hot glue, so we're revisiting this. A whole bunch of nuts to hold everything together. 4 nylon lock nuts, because that's all I have. HDMI cable. Boom arm. Obviously the star of the show. An LCD. So, as I said, there were pieces of this design that I wasn't 100% happy with. So, freak out time. All right. So now that we've done the modeling of the changes that I want to make, it is 3D printing time. Alright, now that we're back, let's put this thing together. So I'm going to take the bare LCD. Now when it's bare, you obviously want to be very careful with this. It is rather fragile. So I'm going to set it down over here. And the first thing I'm going to do, and I've already done it, is thread on the part that you just saw me make. Okay, now what this is, I made the hole for the threaded rod a little smaller, so you have to tap the hole as you put the threaded rod in. I don't want this flopping around, because this is going to be the connection that holds the monitor to the boom, and I don't want any of that force to translate to the LCD, because LCDs are fragile. So it's in there, and it's in there pretty good. I'm going to power up my crappy hot glue gun, which is hiding somewhere around here. Everybody always tells me to clean my lab. If I clean my lab, I'm not going to find anything. Alright, so let's power this up. I say we should do that now because it's going to take about, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour to get even remotely warm. In the meantime, I'm going to take one of the nuts, thread it over top here, take one of the corner pieces. Now, if your 3D printer's like mine, you often wind up with a good side and a bad side. Just make sure the good side's the one facing towards you, which will be the one facing away from this hole. So I want the good side to be like this. So we literally insert through that, screw the nut down until I have enough of the screw on the outside to trap that piece in place. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the other end. Now obviously it helps if you have trimmed these threaded rods to be roughly the same size as the monitor's dimensions. Makes life a little bit easier. right? But we'll tighten it down and get it to fit perfectly a little later on. So now I'm going to take the monitor itself, and we're just going to insert the monitor into the slots on the corner, the slot on the top part, and the slot on the other side. And now we're going to loosen the inside bolts so that we can slide the corner pieces up until they tighten down. And then I'm going to push them back out. And I'm going to tighten the outside bolts too. Keep everything nice and tight. Now it shouldn't be able to hold the LCD yet because it's only got one piece, but there should be some resistance to moving it. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to take one of the side pieces. I've chosen to mount the electronics on one of the side rails so that it's easier to access the pieces. Now, unlike the first part, you can see this moves freely up and down on this side rod. So we're going to actually need to use a couple of these bolts to hold it in place in the middle. I essentially want this panel to be about halfway in the middle of the one side of the monitor. So we're going to do that. Like so. Now obviously you don't have to be immensely precise with this, but get them tightened down a little bit. Okay, and then now we want to put another nut up here because we're going to insert into the other bracket up at the top there. And I like to give myself roughly the right amount of space. So we bring this back down, slide this back into the other pieces. I swear this will get easier eventually. Again, don't try to force it. LCDs are delicate. I'm going to pull the LCD out of the equation and get this tightened down. Alright, so now we insert that part, put another bolt on the outside, just tighten that down, tighten the top one down. Okay, so now we've got most of the square, right, in order to trap this LCD. So now, one of the first things you definitely want to do is make sure you're putting the LCD in the right way. It would suck to finish the whole frame off and realize that the LCD is upside down. Alright, now we slide the monitor into all of the grooved slots. Should nice and easily fit into. Again, don't force anything. These monitors are very, very delicate. Okay, now we're going to grab one of the other corners and a few more nuts. Now I purposely left the side ones a little long so they'll hang out the end of the corner a lot further than the other ones did. Right, I wanted to be able to reuse this frame if I crack this LCD. Basically, we're just tightening that down. After tighten those two, grab our other two rods. A couple more nuts. It smells like the hot glue gun is finally hot. It took like 10 minutes. Put this one in place, like so. Now along the bottom, I also want the button control panel. So that will be slid on next. So we're just grabbing this guy here. I missed a step. We need retaining nuts. If you ever work with threaded rod, you will be spending a good portion of your life just spinning nuts. Okay, and then we're going to slide the control panel. It really wants to just kind of explode until you've got everything in place. And then it is remarkably stable once everything is in place. So we'll go ahead and just screw this nut back down to about there because that's kind of where I want it. Okay, so now we counter tighten those two together. Alright, so once we get the final rod in here, this whole frame will get a lot more stable. First thing I want to do is thread one nut on this side. I like to do this slightly in a different order, just a little bit like this, and then into here to minimize the amount of nut spinning I have to do. Thankfully that was kind of a factory end, so that went on quite easily. We'll tighten this way down till that bites a little bit. And over here, we're going to loosen the ones in the middle. Should make it so you can see what I'm doing, shouldn't I? Loosen the ones in the middle a little bit. Tighten the outside ones down so that it grabs onto that monitor very nice and tightly. And tighten the tighten the nuts that are holding the other stuff in place. And we're going to do the same with the long direction, which was pretty tight already, actually. All right. So now, counter tightening them against each other until it gets nice and tight. That's not going to go anywhere. So now, we have an entire monitor in a case, ready to hopefully be able to be held up by a mic boom. Again, still a wild card if this is actually going to work, but we'll find out. Okay, so here is a trap for new players that I fell into. The control button, if you look at this, you can see the control pad here is in the way of where the LVDS cable goes. So we're just going to undo one of these bolts a lot so I can slide it out of the way, like so. Now this LVDS cable, for some reason, I don't know who designed this, who came up with this idea, it plugs in from the bottom. Okay, so that's in there. Now we'll bring this back around. I'm going to tuck this cable behind the control panel. The LVDS cable is always very sensitive, so I kind of like the idea that the control panel is going to hold it in place too. That's an inadvertent plus. So we're going to tighten down this nut so that that doesn't move side to side anymore. I'm going to plug the control panel into the controller board. And now I just want to do a quick test to make sure that the monitor is still fine. This is just your standard 12 volt, 2.5 watt, or 2.5 amp power supply. Should be more than enough to power this. I chose this one because it's a nice long cable, and obviously we're going to have to thread it through the boom arm. So we just plug this in. The LED light comes on. The LCD comes on, and we have some text I can't read. But that tells me that it is definitely still alive and working. So we're going to go ahead and unplug the monitor itself so that we don't have power floating around. Now for the evil hot glue gun. Anybody who's been with the channel for a while knows I hate this thing. We're going to go ahead and just add some hot glue around the outside of this. I originally wanted this to screw in the way the threaded rods do, but the threads on the outside are a little too fine to do that well. Seriously, if any of you are looking for a Christmas gift for me, send me a freaking new hot glue gun. That thing sucks. I think that's in there pretty good. So with that in there, let's go ahead and go for gold, shall we? And it can hold it. I'm going to just shove this in here for now. This is the holder. As you can see, I now have a monitor that I can move around. I'm going to hook up a video source, and we're gonna take a look at this together. So I expect this to be a little lopsided now because it's got some weight on the one side. But that, I think, will work out nicely. Alright, so there you have it. I now have a monitor made from a recycled screen from a dead laptop that didn't use cardboard, did use hot glue, but didn't use cardboard. And it is an absolutely beautiful addition to this lab, I think. I'm going to go ahead and do some cable management, get the thing hanging nicely. I want to thank you for joining me in the lab. I hope you learned something today, and we will speak again soon. Figure it out. I'm a professional.